Episode 44, Superpowers.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover all kinds of cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome back, Visionaries. Today we are going to be talking about one of our favorite parts of fandom, superpowers, and all their various flavors and origins, as well as real-world problems that you may not expect would occur if you had a superpower. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode about The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. That is my favorite short story.
So good.
From my favorite author. It was a deep dive episode for sure. Definitely an intellectual, brain-stretching trip into some really wild sci-fi concepts. So if you didn't listen to that, go find... No spoilers here. That's one story I do not spoil for anybody. I tell everybody, go read it or go listen to it on YouTube. It's literally 30 minutes long. It's a short story, and it's worth it. You'll never forget it. And then listen to our episode. And also, I hope you guys enjoyed that super cool intro-outro song that I made. It was really just an excuse for me to make something trippy and spacey, and I thought it was pretty cool. Before we get started with this episode, we were just talking about space. Nate, don't you have some news for us concerning space? What's going on up there?
We finally landed on Mars.
We have? I'm there?
Welcome. I think it was yesterday. They finally touched down with one of their rovers. I don't know the name of the rover. Do you remember the name of the rover?
I think it's called Insight, and I think they called it a probe. I don't know if it's officially like a wheeled rover. Might just be a little probe.
So they just basically sent the same thing they did in Martian. It doesn't move. It just takes pictures.
They just probed Mars. Sorry.
That's funny.
Oh man, I remember one day in Latin class we learned the word probant, which means I think it's like to teach, or the teacher is a probant. And my friend and I had a little too much fun with that word. It was bad. Moving on.
But, I mean, it took it 6 years. I don't know how I felt about that.
That's a really long vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, a vacation to get there, and then we get there, have the second vacation, and then a third on the way home.
And then a vacation once you get home.
Yeah, because we'll be exhausted.
And everybody, everybody be the same age as you. Never mind.
Well, it depends how fast I get to Mars. Josh, anything interesting going on with you?
Not much. Did finally get to go see Bohemian Rhapsody. Cool. Yeah, growing up a huge Queen fan, when I heard that was coming out, I was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it looks like they did a really good job with similarity and the movements and everything like that. Was it pretty authentic from your experience?
It was absolutely fantastic. If you've not seen it, go check it out. Definitely not going to spoil anything about the movie, but yeah, it was pretty spot on. I had just watched the Live Aid performance that Queen had, and then probably about 2 days later went and saw the movie, and it was absolutely spot on. They nailed it. So very, very good. Cannot suggest it enough.
For myself, I just did a fun photo shoot yesterday of a girl dressed up as a bombshell version of Wonder Woman, which is like a 50s retro, or rather vintage Wonder Woman. I think she's a character from a comic book, and I think she's also included in one of the video games, but she's got a really cool 50s look, and that went really well. And then I finished 2 audiobooks in the past 2 weeks. Today I finished the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is, of course, where the movie Blade Runner comes from, by Philip K. Dick. And it was not what I expected. It has some really great, like, deep, thought-provoking parts, but some other parts that were just plain confusing, and I was like, how did we get here? What is happening, and why is this person doing this thing? It was just a little odd sometimes. But again, I was listening at 2x speed, so maybe I missed something. And again, I've slowed it down to 1x, just normal speed for the audiobook, and it is the weirdest thing. Like, I swear it's in slow-mo because I'm used to 2x now. It's really weird. And a few days ago, I finished another audiobook called Saturn Run by John Sanford, and that was a really cool, almost a hard sci-fi book. It was very much science-based. I mean, there was realistic and actually mathematically calculated space travel. The author did like extensive studying and research, and like I said, actual calculations as far as, location, speed, velocity, all the trajectory stuff. about going to Saturn. Yeah, it's a cool first contact story. They find something out on the rings of Saturn. They go there, and there's also the Chinese is also going out there to try to beat us. It's like a new space race, and very exciting. But I really enjoyed it. It was a good book. And it's just a nice one-off novel. There's not a trilogy. I feel like I'm almost getting trilogy burnout, like everyone's doing sequels and trilogies in their books because that's what makes more money. It's just like a nice one-time book. And I really enjoyed it. Something else that's going on is I am trying to repair my lens. I dropped at Alamo City Comic Con my Canon 16 to 35 f2.8 lens, which is my wide angle. And I love that lens for a lot of special things. But I dropped it, and it worked for a while, but there's a loose screw, and that loose screw finally found its home somewhere inside the lens.
Oh, it hurts.
Yeah, it jammed my zoom ring. So now my 16 to 35 is just a 24-35, and I can't zoom out to the wide angle. I can't get wide. So I'm not tearing it apart. I'm gently disassembling my lens and trying to find where this little broken piece is.
Dude, that sucks. I'm sorry.
It's all disassembled on a white piece of printer paper with little baby screws everywhere on my desk next to my laptop here. Fingers crossed I can find that bad part, get it out, and put everything back together, and it'll actually work. We'll see. All right, well, let's talk about superpowers, shall we? We shall. So, Superpowers is an interesting fictional plot point, and if you really want to get deep, Superpowers goes way back to ancient mythologies, things like Hercules, the great hunters in Genesis. There's all kinds of places throughout historical legend and myth where superpowers come to the surface, and we see some god or demigod or blessed or maybe even a cursed character that has a superpower. So the superpowers are not a new idea. We just have seen a resurgence in this, science and data age where we're like, now it's science causing the powers and not a god or a curse or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this later, but it's funny how we see culture influencing superpower stories. And then as science progresses decades later, we can look back and be like, why were all the superpowers caused by radiation back in the 50s? Mm-hmm. It's because radiation was like this new frontier of science that was not understood, especially by comic book writers and civilians. They didn't know anything about radiation. So it was the new mystical thing, and it caused all kinds of superpowers. But now that we understand it, it's like, oh yeah, it's bad. But now the new thing is like quantum. Like everything's like quantum, and we've moved on to new cliches that give us powers. So I just thought that was kind of interesting how we see superpowers sort of following trends and showing us where we stand in science, and it's always changing. Guys, let's talk about the fun stuff first. What are some superpowers that you've always wished you could have?
Superpowers, I've always thought it would be kind of cool to have. Growing up as a kid, obviously, one of the first things is Superman, and you sit there and you're like, oh, it'd be cool to be able to fly or have X-ray vision and all that stuff. So, flight was definitely one of the ones that I first kind of, as a kid, running around tucking the towel in my shirt and jumping off the couch. I'm flying.
Broken leg.
Yeah. Yeah. But funny enough to say this, as I've gotten older, that thought has just kind of played with me, and reading different comic books, I think I've kind of landed on the power that I would like to have the most would probably be teleportation.
Yeah.
Save a whole lot of money on airfare.
I'm all for the teleportation until Daniel ruined it for me and made me think I'd die. And I was like, well,
we'll get to that later. Josh, have you seen the Because Science YouTube video about teleportation?
Yeah. Let me just say, I would teleport to that guy's studio and punch him in the face because he's ruined things for me.
He's so smart, though.
Which is his superpower.
And his gorgeous long Goldilocks. Nate, what about you? What's the superpower you've always dreamed of having?
I'm like a lot like Josh. I would fly around. Growing up, I always thought it'd be cool to be invisible. And then I remember telling somebody, I was like, you know what? I think I would like to have the power of having selective invisibility. Like, if I'm not feeling wanting to talk to you, then I could just choose if you hear me or not. And I could just disappear, or Or you can't see me, but you can hear me, and I would think that'd be hilarious. Walking in somebody's room, they can't hear me, and go boo in their ear, and then freak them out. And
Yeah, like the Invisible Man.
yeah, pretty much. And then teleportation, I always thought would be pretty cool. I was like, yeah, we're in the future. We're gonna have pads where you can just teleport, but that hasn't happened yet. So
Nope. A long ways off. Maybe you have to get naked in private and then you're invisible and no one can see you.
what an awful power to wear off.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, Daniel, what about you?
Growing up being a computer nerd, I always wish I could save and load reality. Like I wish I could like make a save point like in a video game and just do whatever I wanted or go down one path or do something. And if I didn't like the outcome or I wanted to try something different, I could load and we go back to that original save point, but with my memories intact. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I just thought that would be fun to play with.
That's very cool.
A little Matrixy, but
a little video gamey, Matrixy. Yeah. Some other powers that I thought would be cool to have would be to control air pressure. It's kind of weird, but if you really think about it scientifically, you could do a lot if you could control air pressure. You could possibly make yourself fly or at least levitate. You could use air pressure as an attack. Like you could push people back or make a wall of condensed air pressure and they couldn't penetrate it. You could suffocate people to make a sphere of non-air around them.
Well,
and then,
that got dark.
There's no air. Yeah.
Darth Vader.
Hey, good way to kill bad guys. It's a lot of tricky things you could do with air pressure control.
So it's just a fancy word for the Force.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, sort of. Shoot a condensed ball of air and just like rupture your internal organs.
Hey,
wow.
Hey, you got to plan for the worst.
Oh, I know.
Be ready
but just
for the uprising.
It just escalated from. I always thought it'd be cool to push air and then kill you. I'm like
rupture your internal organs.
Yeah, okay, well.
I'm glad I'm in Idaho.
I did a Facebook post earlier today and I said, what are your favorite superpowers? What's one that you wish you had? And also, what's the dumbest superpower you've ever heard of? And I got some really great responses. My brother had a really interesting one that I never thought of. And this just goes to show how nerdy and weird he is. And we are really. It's a Grove thing. So this is a superpower he wishes he could have. He says, I wish I could control the distance between molecules. I'm thinking, okay, what would you do with that? He said, well, fly. You could basically have a force push or force pull. He said you can do airbender stuff. You could also heat up objects if you could vibrate particles. You could phase through objects like vision does with your molecules going in between other molecules. You could change the volume or the weight of objects. You could crunch someone into a white dwarf by compressing all their molecules. Lots of creative things I never thought of. So thanks, Gabe.
Back to the dark place. I'm just joking.
Only used for justice, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Or ripping open a bank vault. There's also that. But yeah, I got lots of colorful responses for superpowers people wish they had, and also some really silly ones that they've read of or thought of. So thank you guys for letting us know about that. So thank you guys for commenting and giving me that entertainment for the day. So that's our wish list of powers. What are some powers that you've always loved that superheroes have had, that you've read about, maybe powers that have intrigued you or kind of made you wonder what would that be like?
Honestly, I like the Captain America being able to travel through time, but kind of living his life. And so I've always, for a hero, that's something I've always enjoyed.
Being frozen in ice wasn't really his power.
But he didn't die.
True, you're right. He had super serum, so his metabolism didn't.
He's a real human with superhero serum. My bad.
Yes.
And
thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I've also not really a superhero. I mean, you guess you can call him if you want, and he's categorized. I don't really know what he's categorized. I've also really liked the strength and the wit and the smarts and the knowledge that Batman's had. And it's just like this like this strength that's like, where you're a human, where does this come from? And I know it has a lot to do with his armor, but played some of the video games and I've seen a lot of the movies, and he's actually taken some hits to like his body, not just the armor. And I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, Batman, I think in more recent renditions where there's technology included, like into his suit, which I didn't grow up with that. I grew up with the animated series, which he was wearing like cloth and leather.
Yeah.
He still was strong,
He's just
but he
like
was a
DC's
bulky
Captain
guy.
America.
Yeah. But yeah, I admire Batman, although technically he doesn't have any superpowers. He's just that cool.
mean, is being rich really a superpower?
Yes.
Well,
Hello.
yeah. Okay. Sorry. Dumb
I
question.
got radioactive waste dumped on me and now I'm rich. From a settlement lawsuit.
And as far as like villain related stuff, I've also like Loki's power. It's always humorous to watch him, but to be able to have him not be there, but he's there, has always been kind of trippy. And I've actually really enjoyed Tom Hiddleston's role in Marvel, and I'm sad to kind of see he may not be around anymore, but as a villain, I've really liked his role.
Well, Tom Hiddleston is going to be in his very own Loki TV show, which will be on the Disney streaming service coming up.
Yes, sir.
Did you know that? Disney Plus, yeah. Lame name. So lame.
Lame name, but amazing content, though.
Some powers that I have really found intriguing was one character in a show that many people, I feel like it was very underappreciated, was the 4400. Really cool show, and it's getting a reboot, which I hope it's going to be good. And in it, there's a character who has the power of convincing people of anything. It's kind of like psychic powers, I guess, but specifically, like she'll tell someone something, and that's all that they know. That's what they believe.
Whoa.
And I guess it's the way that when it came in the show, I was like, I've never thought of that. That would be a really scary, power. Like she's influencing and she's directly manipulating political, like military officials with this power, which is really terrifying. So yeah, if someone had their hands on someone that had that power, we'd be in trouble. That was a cool power. Another one I found intriguing, of course, similar to my wish list power earlier, but is a time rewind power from Doctor Strange using the time stone.
Yeah.
Or the Eye of Agamotto, not Quasimodo. But yeah, that power to do stuff and then rewind time, I guess locally, like he was rewinding that apple and it wasn't just like all of time, it's like a localized area that he selects somehow. I think that's a really cool power. And another one, I just got to fit in. I've got a whole list, but I just want to fit in this one. Extra dimensional storage, such as Mary Poppins' bag.
Yes.
How cool would that be to be able to have like a small storage device where you can pull anything out of it, like physical storage?
That'd be so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Go camping, you'd be made with anything you want.
Let me just go on my little like 10 by 10 storage unit. Oh, you need a car? Just 1 second. You're back.
So we've been daydreaming about powers, some cool stuff that we wish we could do, and other things we've seen heroes do that is always fun. But, I have realized, kind of thanks to the Because Science YouTube channel, that if we were to really have any form of a superpower in our real world universe, there will be a lot of downsides that we don't see in the movies because they're movies, they're fictional, and because it's a story that's got to have a good ending, and they're usually aimed at 9-year-olds, average, maybe 12-year-olds. So they can't be too real. But what if we really had a superpower? Like, what would happen to our life? Not only would we be able to handle it as a person, but all the other things that would happen as a result, political things, politicians being, interested, the military being, warned, and Homeland Security keeping a constant eye on you. Like all these other things that I think would realistically happen as a result. You don't see them in movies, but what would they be like? So we're going to talk about some of the downsides to having, any insert your superpower here. So the first thing that came to mind was the scientific community would be intrinsically interested in you.
Yeah.
If you were able to, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's super strength, if it's shooting lasers out of your eyes, teleporting for sure, like the scientific community must know how this is done. And then what the trickle down effect is, military and then ultimately political powers. They want to know how you're doing this and how they can use it.
For sure.
Either use you or duplicate that into a super serum or something like that and give all their soldiers the same benefit. So yeah, the scientific studying and things like that would be a major concern of mine if I had superpowers.
Yeah, for sure.
Realistically, I think you would probably have to just run away to India like Bruce Banner did and just live off the grid because it would just not be fun.
No.
It wouldn't be fun anymore. once anybody finds out who you are, you're done for, you know, like a superhuman.
Yeah, but like Eric Bana, the government would eventually find you.
Yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. will find you. Leave it to them.
Yeah.
Well, somehow their airships can track your DNA from like 20,000 miles out. I don't know how that's supposed to happen, but
another downfall. I mean, it's not just the scientific thing, but you know, kind of going off of one of the powers that I've always thought would be fun is the teleportation. You see it in the movie Jumper, where it's not
a cool movie.
It's not the scientists that are coming after him. It's a religious cult, basically. And so,
totally.
I mean,
Samuel Jackson.
You would have, yeah. Hey, if Samuel L. Jackson's coming after you, you better watch out.
Not the bunny trail, but I feel like he goes after Hayden Christensen like twice. He goes after him as Anakin and then the Jumper. I'm like, dude, what is happening?
Oh, I forgot he's in Jumper.
Well, and rightfully so. It is Hayden Christensen that we're talking about. You know, so it's not just the scientific community that would come after you, but I mean, we all have a religious background and we were all raised religious, and I'm sure we all can sit there and go, okay, well, I know this person that is ultra religious. I mean, you would have those type of people coming after you because, you know, I mean,
because
seriously, yeah, because you're different, and because you know, did God give you those powers, type thing,
yeah.
And so your life would definitely be upside down, regardless of the power. I mean, I guess unless you're super strong and they think you're the reincarnation of Samson.
I mean,
but
I mean, like we all don't like the Transformers movies. I understand that, but I guess you can see it in the movie world is how they're going after all the Autobots and pulling them apart and stuff. There'd be some similarity if people wanted to probe you or test on you or get rid of you. It'd be similar to, I know it's not great, but an example, and they're robots, and it would be similar to that where governments are coming after you. And
well, this kind of carries into the next section of the downside to having superpowers is the social impact. So I'm glad that you brought up that religious aspect. I didn't even think about that. But you're right, in Jumper, there's that, it's almost a secret society that have known about the Jumpers all throughout history. And their main thing is you should not be allowed to have this great amount of power. Because we don't have it. No one else has it. So you shouldn't have it either. And it was not God's will. So they're basically out to kill Jumpers or at least capture them.
Yeah.
And that same mentality of you shouldn't have it because I don't have it and I don't like you having it. That I see that in the new show, The Gifted. I think they're called the Purists or something like that, where basically they are out to kill mutants because they don't believe that God intended mankind to I mean, mutants to them aren't humans. They're like an abomination to God because they're different than God's original perfect design, right? So similar idea. They're out to get them because they're different and they don't like them.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of social impacts to being above the rest of the human race in one particular area. One obvious one is you would become a celebrity and you would also be endlessly criticized. It would be a double-sided, coin, like, ooh, let's see what he's doing today. But at the same time, all the tabloids would be all over you too. It'd be like, oh, he ate eggs for breakfast. How could he? Like anything you do would be criticized and watched, and paparazzi and all that crap would be all over you all the time. Just waiting for you to use your superpower. And there would be people trying to egg you on, trying to just take you off or cause a scene to make you use your power. And then they would sue you, of course, because that's just how we do in America.
For sure.
Just our way of making money. That's like a career choice is the lawsuit person, Just
living an everyday normal life. I mean, you look at, like you said, becoming a celebrity, regardless of what type of celebrity that is. I mean, there's those people that have become celebrities just because people love to criticize them. You go to a grocery store and you're going to get hounded. You go out to a restaurant and you're going to get hounded. I mean, your life
disguises.
Yeah, and you have to hire people to go to the store for you or have stuff delivered. I mean, You would have to have your own fortress of solitude.
There could be an Uber service for superpowered people, and it would be called Suber. Huh? Yeah? No, you're not investing in my corporate enterprise. Okay.
Funny. Wah wah.
If you had powers, there would be way too many eyes watching you all the time, and there would also be, I feel like your friendships would be, at least the really genuine good friendships, which hopefully we all have. But I feel like a lot of more distant relationships would kind of be one-sided, and people would want things of you. They would want help. They would expect you to be, something that you're not, or they would expect you to do things on their terms. Like use your power just real quick to help them out of a tight spot. And that would that manipulation and that people expecting things of you would be not a healthy way to live any social relationship.
Rent a hero.
Yeah, hey, monetize it, right?
Well, I mean, you look at athletes. You get these athletes that all of a sudden sign these multi-million-dollar contracts, and people come out of the woodwork, or even people that win the lottery. These all of a sudden you've got a cousin that's coming up going, "Hey, I need $10,000.
Hey, this is Uncle Bob. I need your help." You're like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, it's like, Uncle Bob, I've never met you in my life, but
I've got cancer of the pinky toe and I need $200,000.
Hey, what kind of pinky do you need?
The cybernetic one.
Yeah, it would just get crazy. I mean, people would come out of the woodwork. But funny enough, side note, you made the comment about monetizing your superpowers. Have you seen the movie with Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo, Mystery Men?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's the character. I cannot remember the actor that plays him, but he's the Superman of the movie, and he's wearing like Pepsi logos all over his super suit because he's got all these corporate sponsors.
Yeah, like the NASCAR race cars.
Yeah, well, Fantastic Four. Chris Evans, when he played Johnny Storm, they did a similar thing where he had the Dodge logo on the suit.
That's hilarious. I don't remember that. Yeah, that would happen. Everything's getting branded. Boxer, the shorts that boxers wear, cars, Instagram feeds, you would definitely get some high paying deals coming your way.
Oh yeah.
Which,
hey, look, it's Superman, sponsored by Jeep.
Yeah, with a little slogan below it. So we're talking about people wanting to take advantage of you. Well, who would love to take advantage of a superpowered person? A politician and or governments.
Oh yeah.
You will be a prime target, either for branding and winning people's trust to get people to, either side of maybe an election or, someone trying to accomplish something, but also, people trying to use you for sabotage and espionage things. You would be, depending on what your power is, you might be very useful for some special missions. And so I feel like that would be something that I would not want to get involved with. It would be inevitable, I think, that opportunity coming your way.
Mm-hmm.
Another downside, speaking of political issues, is that you would be seen as a liability for wherever you live. Like if I were the mayor of a city and I know that someone that's like the Hulk lives in my city, I don't want them in my city. They're going to destroy everything around them. Or someone with superhuman strength and or laser eyes or whatever. Or let's say you can, teleportation. Now I'm worried about my banks and my, privacy and things like that. I don't want you in my city because of what you have. So you may likely be kicked out of a lot of places and not trusted or not wanted wherever you go.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's where the insurance agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in to save the day with their low premiums. Super strength coverage, teleportation coverage, multi-dimensional fallout. That's a good one to have.
100-year plan.
You never know when you'll get a portal opened up and, oops.
It's interesting that we're talking about the downsides of having these powers. And we've actually seen it played out in the movies. I mean, from the scientific experiment, you're seeing it in TV shows like The Gifted, where they're talking about that, to the social issues, to the political issues were a big one in Captain America: Civil War. With
the Geneva Accords,
the Sokovia Accords,
Sokovia Accords, yeah.
The just making, and all of a sudden you have to be registered, and you see it, and it's an interesting, especially the political ramifications. It's interesting because you watch the Captain America journey through the movies where he is a government experiment, and then he becomes, the government is using him for propaganda and to raise money, and then he becomes that soldier, and the government uses him that way, and then he realizes, wait a minute, the government's not really doing what they said that they were going to do. And so he kind of leaves that. And you see that struggle because even if you want to help make things better, the unfortunate thing is, do you really make things better? Because if you're taking orders from somebody else, everybody has an agenda.
Yeah.
And it makes you think. I mean, we still sit here and go, oh, I would love to have this power, when they're showing us these ramifications that we might have to deal with.
Yeah, I think the X-Men movies touch on the issue of racism towards this new race of mutant humans. And The Gifted is doing a great job at really bringing up these political, social, and religious issues that we're talking about. Because we see now my wife is watching it more attentively than I am. And now there's like 4 or 5 different branches. There's not just the humans and the mutants. It's like there's good neutral mutants, there's more militant mutants, and then there's like a secret society of like really, do whatever it takes mutants, even if it's killing humans. And then of course there's the military humans, and there's the terrorist religious humans. There's just different factions. And I'm thinking this is actually pretty realistic. I feel like this would likely happen. There would be the whole, rainbow of flavors of how you feel about mutants and where you stand, whether you are or are not one. And there would be groups and factions that would say, no, we're the right ones, or, our agenda is the one that we need to pursue right now about these guys, and, take them out, or I'll leave them alone. There's even mutants that just don't want to be bothered, so they literally live underground.
Yeah.
Dang. So there's that. They're just hiding. Lots of real world impact that we're finally seeing in the superhero movies. And I think that's just, the 2000s, especially in the teens, we see just darkness and grittiness coming into superhero movies like The Dark Knight. It's running off into us seeing more of a real world view of superpowers instead of just, he swoops in and saves the day and gets the girl. There's more to it, and I like that we're getting more down to earth with the superpowers.
They did a great example in The Man of Steel with Henry Cavill, trying to capture him, and he stands up and breaks out of the chains, and he can see through your glass, and he knows everything about you, and he says, it's in your left pocket, and that's scary, hopefully he's on the good side.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some downsides to specific superpowers. And maybe you guys have some to add to it, but I just made a quick list of, I think this is 4 different superpowers. These are a few thoughts that I've collected that you might want to be aware of if you were to have this superpower. So flight. Everyone wishes they had flight, right? We see Superman flying through the clouds, getting wherever he wants in minutes. That's great. But what if you're flying through a cloud? You would get soaked. If you're flying really fast, I can barely handle 60 mile an hour worth of wind in my eyes when I'm driving fast with the window down. Like I can't even see. So you're going to have to wear big goggles with good peripheral vision so you don't hit any birds. That's another problem.
Yeah.
You're going to need to have a really ginormous and not attractive parka to keep yourself, dry. You're going to probably want to have a GPS or at least a compass. And if you're going really high, you might want to bring an oxygen tank with you because there's not a lot of oxygen when you get up too high. So yeah, that's just flight. Next thing is super strength. So assuming your muscles are hyperactive or efficient, or the muscles fibers themselves are just amplified, hopefully your bones are also amplified, because if they're not, you will be breaking every single bone in your body, depending on what you're doing. I'm pretty sure the human femur and or humerus and fibula, tibia, all our leg and arm bones, they cannot handle the weight of a semi-truck. So if you were to lift one, your muscles might be able to do it, but your muscles will also snap your bones in half if they're not also super strong. Let's say your bones and your muscles are good to go. They're all super whatever. They're defying physics. And Newton is turning in his grave right now. Your skin would likely rip under the force and tension that you're exerting on it by lifting, pushing, punching through walls, you name it. the skin can only handle so much. And you're also going to have super skin. In order to do all of this lifting and punching through walls just for the fun of it, you're going to have a crap ton of calories in your body, or you won't last very long because you're burning up calories hundreds to 1,000 times faster than a normal human would.
Yeah.
I noticed that the whole calorie intake problem was finally addressed in the Flash TV show. Did you guys catch that? When he made the Super Pop-Tarts or whatever they were, they were like calorie-filled bars.
Mm-hmm.
That just made me smile. I was like, finally, someone's talking about the need for calories to exert superhuman whatever. So that made me happy. They finally made its way into somewhere. Although after that episode, you never hear about him again. Like, no. He should literally be snacking on these super bars like once an hour at least. But, can't be too authentic or it's not fun.
One thing that I actually thought about, and it's ridiculous, we all hate helping people move. But if you have that one friend that is super strong, you're going to call them and go, hey, I need help with that couch. And all of a sudden, you're a professional mover.
Yeah, you
are. I don't want strength because I don't want to have to move your couch.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
So
that's the worst downside to having super strength is everyone wanting you to move them.
Yeah. Anyway.
My third thing is super speed. So we see people, especially the Flash, just dashing left and right, avoiding bullets and running and stopping. And he just stops. There's no momentum. There's no shockwave. There's no crumpling. Like the momentum that your body held is never transferred anywhere. It's just gone, which again, Newton is rolling in his grave. And something else you deal with, depending on how fast you're moving, is your clothes ripping off of you. You might very well end up at your destination naked because you ripped all your clothes off running too fast. Another dangerous thing would be sonic booms. If you move faster than the speed of sound, there will be a ginormous sonic boom. And if you are anywhere near a civilian place with buildings or anything like that, there will be a lot of broken windows and a lot of sirens and busted eardrums and crying children. It's just not good. You can't go too fast. And again, the wind in your eyes, it's just, my eyes are watering just thinking about it. You're definitely going to need some serious goggles for running fast. And you're going to be buying lots of shoes. My dad plays tennis incessantly, and he goes through a pair of shoes probably every few months. And the bottom gets totally flat. It's unreal. But it's just because that's starting and stopping on the turf or whatever the surface is. So running would definitely wear down your shoes pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then my last thing, which is one of my favorite rants and raves about superpowers, is teleportation. So let me crack my knuckles here and get ready to just shoot this to the ground. So let's say I want to teleport over there, maybe 10 feet in front of me. Well, if I teleported similar to Nightcrawler in X-Men, he disappears and there's maybe a 1 second gap and then he reappears. Well, during that 1 second gap, the Earth has rotated and the Earth has moved away from where it was. So it's rotating itself on its axis and it's rotating around the sun. And if you're going to get even crazier, the sun is rotating around the center of the galaxy. So by the time you reappear out of your whatever dimension where you go to and then you come out of, you will be in space and you will probably die. So there's that. Unless you're doing instantaneous travel, which still there's just no guarantee that you're going to be stationary to that continent and that room and that part of the Earth when you come out of where you were. Another thing is, what happens if you teleport and oops, I'm in the middle of a wall? Would your atoms just fuse with a wall? You guys ever thought about that?
I haven't.
No.
Well, it would be probably very unpleasant. I think it's safe to say. And, we're talking about solid objects fusing into them if you accidentally teleport into one. There's atoms everywhere in the air. So if you teleport over to the other side of the room, what happens to the molecules that are present where you're teleporting? Are they pushed out of the way? Which I kind of assume that somehow. But then also the molecules that were around your body where you left, they're now going to fill up a vacuum. So I feel like there would be a loud pop of a vacuum clap of the oxygen from around your body where you were, closing into that empty space that your body was when you teleported out.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. I don't know how that would affect sound and air and, air movement, things like that. It might just make a shockwave when you reappear in a new space, all those molecules would be pushed out and just boom, everything is destroyed in the room. that would suck.
Yeah.
So those are just a few of Daniel's footnotes about how to have superpowers.
I don't like the downside. You're just killing all my childhood dreams. Whatever.
Seriously.
You want to fly? It sucks.
All right.
You want to run? Oh well. You want to teleport?
Nope.
You're dead. I'm like, dang.
Yeah, you want to have super strength, you're going to break all of your bones. Just none of it just sounds fun.
You're going to be paralyzed or you're going to bleed to death. Like, dang, okay, well,
basically.
So another disadvantage to the super speed thing, you said that you would have to have like goggles to protect the wind in your eyes. I would think that you would need a face mask because think about running 60 miles per hour and a fly coming into your mouth.
Oh, that would destroy
you're gonna have
you.
Bugs.
It would throw you off, though.
So,
it might hit you like if you hit a wall.
Yeah, actually, the impact scientifically is magnified by speed. So, like, if a spaceship hits a particle in space, if it's going, say, half flight speed, that will annihilate the spaceship. It's just one particle. But if we're going, say, 200 miles an hour and we hit a bug or, I don't know.
You look like Swiss cheese.
Rip through it. Yeah, it would. It would rip through us if we're going the right speed.
Get to your destination. What happened to Johnny's face? A fly. A fly went through my face.
Sorry, Earth. Our greatest superhero has been destroyed by a fly. You know how when you have really powerful wind blowing in your face and it makes your skin flap like when you're skydiving?
Oh yeah.
You need to face masks so you don't turn into Mr. Elastic Face.
Very stretched out face.
Yeah. Your cheeks are down to your waist, just because running for years.
So if you run super fast, would you catch yourself on fire?
You could, yeah. Friction. That's a good point too.
The friction aspect, yeah.
I don't know how fast. I'm sure someone could calculate it, but I wonder how fast you would have to go to feel heat, like the air hitting your body.
Well, and God forbid if you're chubby like I am, the chafing would. God.
I can do 10 steps max.
God bless. That hurts just thinking about it.
It's a lot of coconut oil you have to purchase.
Yeah.
For medicated powder.
We mentioned friction on surface and speed. When something re-enters the atmosphere, it basically causes fire because it's just oxygen and atmosphere hitting the metal surface. That's an example of friction from speed. I don't know what that speed is that they're entering in. I guess it's like terminal velocity, but
if you're running like that fast, and let's say the rest of your body can't really keep up with that, if you stop, wouldn't that throw like everything in your body off? Like your brain, your skull, your spine, your stomach.
That's what I was saying earlier was the momentum problem.
Oh, okay.
Like where did momentum go? Because you're right. When you stop, there's still forward angular momentum, and your brain would.
The worst concussion ever.
You'd die.
It would be the same thing if you ran into a wall. It'd be the reverse of that. It's like if you slammed into a wall like super fast, everything's going to get moved around. Yeah. But it'd be a reverse kind of similar situation.
Well, when we run really fast and stop, it's like we have to catch our footing and slide a little bit and balance, and hopefully we don't fall forwards. So there would be that times like 100. And then, like you said, your internal organs suffering the same fate of being squished forwards. And you'd probably just pass out because your brain would get compressed.
Kind of echoing on like your body falling apart. The teleportation part, if you teleport somewhere else, you're basically saying that time had already changed. Even if it's like a tenth of a second. That tenth of a second, and when they enter back into let's say it's just like two steps in front of them, that blink of like whatever time you want to count, it would throw them off that bad.
It's not the time aspect of it. It's the rotation of the Earth because of how quickly the Earth is moving. Even that 2 steps, based on what the guy on Because Science was saying on his YouTube video, even if you go 3 feet. You would have to your momentum would potentially make you trip if you even reappeared within the same room you were at.
Yeah.
Because of the speed of the Earth rotation and movement of the Earth, which is 1,000 miles per hour or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. So if I wanted to teleport from the chair I'm sitting in to the bed that's next to me, then the likelihood I would probably wind up outside of my house as opposed to on the bed.
You think about this. This is a little bit of a science lesson, but if you're sitting in the back seat of a car and the car is moving, say you're going 50 miles an hour and you're holding a baseball in your hand and you throw the baseball straight upwards, what happens? Does it stay in stationary to the road underneath the car and you drive by and the ball goes backwards? Or does the ball stay straight up and down when you're tossing it up in your hand? It stays straight up and down. The reason why is because as the car is moving forwards, the ball, as well as you, have forward momentum that's equal to that speed of the car. When you toss the ball up, it also has forward momentum to stay in sync with your hand. So assuming you retain that, I think it's called angular momentum of the earth rotating, and then you teleport, you're kind of you're retaining that momentum. That does give you a little bit more accuracy, but still, I still think there's a lot of margin for error that could be deadly.
Basically, if you stuck your hand out the window with the ball and threw it up, the momentum would change for the ball, but you'd still be at the same speed. And so the ball would go crazy. And
No, the ball would still go forwards and you could still catch it, assuming wind didn't catch it. Because you just said put your hand out the window. That changes the whole thing because there's wind pushing the ball back. But inside the car, the ball stays above your hand if you throw it straight up. Even if you're moving 1,000 miles an hour, same thing will happen. But that's because that momentum is in the ball. Even when the ball has left your hand, there's still forward momentum at 50 miles an hour.
So basically, if you ask for the opportunity of teleportation, you'd also need to have like very great math skills to understand.
Yeah, please retain my angular momentum, and you just need to be able to predict where the Earth where you need to be when the Earth where the Earth will be when you exit.
Oh my goodness! So like you're like a super GPS coordinates. Mathematic, weather, sniper, everything they know, plus more just to stay alive and going 3 feet. Oh my goodness. Yes. Like when I say sniper, I'm talking about like they have to do humidity, weather, temperature, range, and all that fun stuff. And you would have to know all that plus like that. Crap load other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then depending on the length of their shot, even the curvature of the Earth.
Goodness.
Yeah. So, yes.
That's crazy. There's a book series that I love. It's called the Long Earth series by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. It's a phenomenal book series. I just need to read the very last book and I'll be done with it. But basically, people have the power to jump, or they call it step. You step into an alternate Earth, and you can go west or east, not literally direction, but just a figurative concept. You can go to Earth 1, which is west, or Earth West 5,000.
That's so cool.
And it's 5,000 alternate Earths into the not real but imaginary westward direction, or you can go east. So that's really cool. But I'm thinking, wait a second, what if another Earth is not exactly in the same orbit as your Earth was for whatever astronomical reason that you don't know about? You would jump into space. Like, for this jumping between Earth thing to happen, every Earth would have to be perfectly in sync. And also the level of the land, hopefully it's the same too, or else you'll teleport into a canyon or into the side of a mountain and you'll be stuck.
So we've been talking about some of the downsides of some of the specific superpowers, but you hit on it a little bit. Well, you hit on it at the beginning of the podcast when you were talking about how people in the comic books would gain their powers, radioactive materials, radiation, whatever the case may be. And that now we're getting into the quantum realms and quantum physics and all of that stuff. So it kind of going back to that, when you look at it with the radioactive materials and the radiation, back in the 50s, that was such a terrifying idea because we had just dropped the 2 nuclear bombs during World War II in the 40s, and then you had the Cuban Missile Crisis. So especially here in America, the thought and the threat of radioactive materials and radiation was terrifying. And so what better way of gaining superpowers? Let's make it into one of these. It may not be such a bad thing.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Just an A-bomb.
Everybody's getting bit by a radioactive spider. It's not that bad of a deal.
Gee golly.
Yeah. So what were some of the other ways that you can remember that people got their powers?
Stan Lee made Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. It's almost like he was on the same wave of, turning teenager into a spider, and then Fantastic Four kind of got hit by this wave of stuff that messed all their DNA up. And so
solar flare.
Yeah, it's like, well, is that the same thing?
Well, it's a similar idea where they're taking a concept in science at the time that is more mysterious and not understood. So if you add, a mythical consequence to it, people at the time couldn't say, "Oh, solar flares are just charged particles from the sun," and it would knock out electronic circuits. They didn't know that. We know it now, and smart people then probably knew it. But the average Joe was like, "Oh, a solar flare, that's cool, yeah." They didn't know any better. And atomic radiation, it wasn't probably public knowledge what it actually did to people until years later when they actually discovered through horrible accidents and cities being infected with atomic fallout that we realize, this stuff's really bad for living cells. This does not amplify or enhance. This destroys your DNA, which is radiation sickness, and you die really horrible, horrible deaths. So he was kind of riding the wave of that theme and that sci-fi idea. It's very out of date now, and no one even touches it. We don't see radioactive waste getting spilled over someone and then they get something. Like that just doesn't happen anymore because it's so outdated, and people understand the real world risks of that happening. But we had the gamma rays was what made Hulk into the Hulk.
Yeah.
He was working on some kind of thing, and it like exploded or shot rays at him, and he transformed. Although I did like a spin on one of the earlier Hulk movies, the one that got forget about this movie, it's not canon anymore. I think his dad was doing gene therapy on his son.
Whoa.
So he had like genes in him that were dormant or were waiting to get triggered. And then the gamma rays that with the accident triggered the gamma rays that like caused those genes in his body to do something. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? There's one where his dad turns into like the elemental, like almost demigod character.
And we're talking about live action stuff, right?
Yeah, that was
not
the one.
Marvel's.
Yeah, before.
That was the one with Eric Bana. That was the yeah. Man,
it had a little twist to it. I feel it wasn't just gamma rays made him into it. It was like that plus his genes were altered or something.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see it in detail, but I do recall what you're saying. And like, dang, actually, that's a good twist.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. His son was like a little living experiment, I think, and then gamma rays did something great I didn't expect. So we got gamma rays, which again are very harmful to living cells. It will not give you superpowers. Don't mess with gamma rays or alpha or beta rays. Also not good for you. Another cliche is chemicals. Chemicals can cause superpowers, right? Like the Flash.
Yeah.
You guys remember the Flash's origin story?
Well, that was lightning and chemicals.
Oh. Problem solved.
So yeah,
add some high voltage electricity.
That's totally possible now.
Totally.
I think even worse than the Flash's origin was the Joker. He dropped into a vat of acid and survived, and then became mentally deranged. And I guess that's a superpower.
And what happened in Suicide Squad? It gave Harley Quinn red and blue hair.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some sweet colored tips on her ponytails.
Well, at least they weren't frosted tips.
No. The next cliche we love is, of course, the mutants, the X-Men. We got genetic mutations.
Yeah.
Now, again, as science has progressed and public, knowledge has increased, we now can generally accept that genetic mutations are not always good things. In fact, they're very, very rarely a helpful trait. Genetic mutations are accidents in your DNA and RNA, writing new code and writing new DNA. And also further things like radiation can alter your DNA, which is, I guess, a mutation. But they're not good. They're not helpful. You don't suddenly have the ability to control magnetic fields or control the weather with your DNA. I never understood how that was supposed to happen, but you're not supposed to think too deeply about that. The X-Men powers are just so outlandish when you think about the fact that they're controlled by human genetics, and just like you have this new evolutionary ability. Like, how?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fantasy. I know. I hope we don't get any hate mail. We're like, it's just a story, guys. Come on. But, I like to take things a little deeper. Like, say, what if? So the last cliche that I came up with was being chosen by a wise and benevolent being. We see this with the Green Lantern as well as Shazam, where I never understood the Green Lantern Corps, why they chose who they chose. Because at least in the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds, like, he's not a great guy to protect the Earth.
Mhm.
Maybe it was like the alien was like on his last dying breath and just that's who he found. Which is pretty sad because that's the reason why he has the ring. Not because he's a great like role model for Earth. It's because, oh, I'm dying. Here, take this ring. I think Shazam is maybe a similar. I don't know much. But do you guys know much about Shazam or the original Captain Marvel?
I don't.
I know his powers are somewhat mythical. Like he gets his powers from a powerful wizard who gives his powers to someone every, I don't know, eon or whatever. Maybe that's, I'm not 100% sure.
I haven't seen the movie.
But,
yeah.
Well, it's not out yet, so there's that.
Well, there you go. That's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah, the boy that gets the powers is like, I don't know, an 12-year-old or something like that. And he meets this wizard who gives him the powers. And then when he says Shazam, he turns into like a grown man. But mystical in origin, sort of like Doctor Strange. They do play off the magic element of Doctor Strange, and they kind of explain it away as like extra dimensional energy and quantum stuff.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like that they're demystifying things, but at the same time, it is literally taking the magic out of, these stories.
Yeah.
Literally. Do you guys like the suspension of disbelief? Like the fact that there's magic involved and you don't have to think, well, are there particles or how does this work scientifically?
I think a little bit. I mean, to an extent, because I think, especially in the movies, we had gotten to the point, especially with it starting with The Dark Knight, where, hey, we're going to show you that, a guy a real person can be Batman. A real person could be the Joker because he's just a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
So these things started getting rooted in reality, and even there were still the fantastical aspects, especially with Captain America. Oh, it's a super soldier serum, but is he really, are those really superpowers? I mean, we gave them to just somebody and he's just a really good guy. I mean, he's, his moral compass points true north type thing. And so, these things got rooted in reality, and to an extent, it almost kind of lost its appeal to me as far as a comic book fan, because that's one of the things about comic books and this type of media where it is an escape. You kind of dive into a comic book to escape that reality almost.
Not get a science lesson.
Not get a science lesson. And so the emergence of Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, they're starting to introduce this magic realm and then DC's doing it with Shazam. The wizard's name, Wonder Woman, the wizard's name that gave Shazam his power was actually named Shazam-O.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, but it introduces, it brings back that fantastical aspect of it that we're going to let it be more of an escape. And so I appreciate that being introduced back into it, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're getting back that fantasy element of mystery and magic that the comics have almost always had in some ways, but in other ways, they're making these cinematic universes a very material or naturalistic universe, which means there's no supernatural. Sure, there's extra dimensions, but that's a pseudoscience topic. It's not like there's the realm of darkness. It's like a magical thing. It's just like, oh, that's just an alternate universe where there's less energy, or like I've trapped you within my magical ring forever. Like you're actually just in a fourth dimensional space within a time loop, like they're trying to they're trying to scientize these magical ideas. So you were seeing both. I like the escapism of not getting a science lesson and just going with the flow, just accepting the fact that because someone has a mutated gene, now they can, I don't know, what's a crazy mutant power? Send someone's consciousness back into the past. Like, how the heck can you do that with an altered gene? It just doesn't make sense. But the escapism is the point. It's similar to the Force in the Star Wars universe. When episode 1 came out, they tried to demysticize it and say, well, the Force actually literally resides in every living being in the form of midichlorians. And if you have more midichlorians, you have more access to the Force.
Yeah.
If you have less or none, then you have less or none access to the Force. So they're really materializing these things into a natural, physical universe, and there's no magic anymore.
Yeah,
they took the magic out of it. They took the Santa away from all the kids, and I didn't like that aspect. I like the Force being a mystical thing, an invisible. It's not sentient, but it's also not dumb, like in the sense that it communicates somehow to people. It guides people. And we never know how or why exactly, with the exception of the midichlorians, which we try not to think about. But I that's a good example too. Is what they try to do with episode 1, but then in episode 8 they're trying to reel it back, and Luke is teaching Rey about what the Force is and giving those beautiful visuals of that island. I love that scene.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And that was cool because we never have much explanation of the Force in all the canon Star Wars movies, except for a few monologues where Obi-Wan's explaining it. And then there's a midichlorian thing. And there's a few just really vague mentions, I feel the Force, or, may the Force be with you. That's all we get. We don't get a textbook explanation of what the crap is the Force and how does it work? So that episode 8 little monologue was beautiful. And it was finally someone's talking about it. It's the biggest pink elephant in the galaxy, and no one's talking about it. And we finally get a little something.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that about covers it for this Superpowers episode. Thank you guys for joining and listening to my rant and raves destroy your childhood fantasies.
Santa's not real.
Oof. What?
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go and cry myself to sleep.
Yeah. I'm gonna go watch every superhero movie and be like, your skin should be bleeding. You should be dead. You should be broken. Teleportation.
I will never watch The Flash the same way again.
That's pretty much how it is when you watch a superhero movie with me.
Oh, no, that's very true. Daniel leans over. He's like, that's not real. I'm like, oh my God. I know that. It's a movie. It's escape. We're escaping from reality.
That would never happen.
Yeah, they're not documentaries.
My favorite is when Daniel leans over. He's like, I predicted it. I'm like, I'm trying to sit there and for 30 minutes, I'm like, what did he predict? I'm trying to recall our conversations. I'm like, what?
It's a problem I have, guys. It's a problem. I'm trying to get help. That's the best feeling in the world for me is when I predict a really elaborate, crazy plot.
And
I saw it coming from the beginning.
No, it was our last episode that I was very prepared, but was not able to be there. And no spoilers, but come on. Really? I called it at the very beginning, and then I was right. I was like, dang it.
We gave you an honorable mention in the episode that you predicted it, I think. So
you did. I didn't hear it.
You get an award. Well, thanks again for joining the episode. And for all our listeners out there, we would love to hear from you guys about what your favorite superpower is, what the dumbest superpowers you've ever heard of or thought of. Let us know, because, we all need a little escapism. So I'm sorry for all the pessimism and reality checking with all these ridiculous superpowers, but let's get back into the magic of things and let us know what your favorite superpowers are. All right, well, thank you guys for listening, and have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so that you won't miss any of the future episodes. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you've got any comments or suggestions for a future episode, you can always reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again and have a great week.
Are you a big Prince fan?
Queen?
Queen, sorry, I mixed them up. I'm so uncultured.
Wow. Uncultured swine.
King? Wait. Oh, that's Keen.
Queen.
There's King, Prince, and Queen. Yeah.